Hello friends, I'm Nukebrush and today we are going to make Infantry Fighting Vehicle, the Chimera.
Time to go nuclear.
This model came to me already printed. Today on our channel is an interesting, I might say, aesthetically modern infantry fighting vehicle. Such a sample of technologically advanced combat equipment would probably be used by advanced specialists of the Imperium, don't you think? And which troops of the Imperium are the most professional and fearful? Yeah, right. So the choice of coloring for this model is quite obvious to me. Well, we decided on the color, let's get to assembly. Nothing complicated, everything fits well, and superglue securely connects all the parts of the tank. There are only few removable elements, 2 turrets and missile launcher, but I also decided to glue an anti-cumulative grids later, somewhere during the weathering stage. The assembly is finished, let's start priming. As always, I prime the IFV with the nitro primer Mistress Officer 1000, which is great for identifying printing errors, all sorts of discrepancies, cracks, thresholds, or extra holes that need to be patched before further painting. Such defects can be patched with liquid putty, but luckily this model did not have any. So we will not need to prime again. In order to create the signature color with Inquisition's combat vehicles, we will need black paint. But black is a tricky color. On the one hand, it seems like nothing complicated, just take it and apply it. Mistakes are easily to correct, or rather paint over, because it's the darkest color of the spectrum. On the other hand, however, how do you make highlights on such a color? And then, pure classical black color practically does not exist in nature, and even more so on combat vehicles. In reality, we always deal with one or another shade of black, from grey to blue. So I decided to go the mixed experimental way. First, we cover the entire model with black glossy paint. Then, using a brush and dark paint, Panzer Grey, I dry brush over all the protruding elements of the tank. When the paneling and details become dark grey and matte, we can move on to the lighter shades of grey. Apply grey lightly and only to the protruding elements. When we are more or less satisfied with the result, we move on to the next stage, creating spots of weathered paint. Using a stencil and black matte paint, we apply small spots to our black glossy model. Gradually adding grey paint to the upper surfaces, we achieve the creation of non-uniform volumetric effect on our IFV. In order to unify our work, we cover the model with a thin layer of diluted black paint, and then, again using dry brush, I slightly restore the selection of hull elements and decals. Again I use grey paint, but carefully, lightly, only for a small visual volume. Well, everything seems to be turning out well. Let's move on. I have painted tank tracks many times, but today we will try to make our tracks less rusty. The base color is black glossy paint, on which we apply various shades of rust colors with a brush. We act methodically, but chaotically, to get a spotty, non-uniform pattern as a result. First we apply dark old rust with brown paint, and on top of it, light spots of fresh rust with more orange paint. When the paint diluted with water dries, it forms a random spotty pattern, which is what we are trying to achieve. Now, using the already familiar dry brush technique, we restore the metallic shine of our tracks. First we thoroughly apply dark metal, then, with less pressure on the brush, brighter and shinier one. When the metal parts of the tracks are ready, we can work on the rubber elements. I use rubber and tires paint, on top of which I randomly apply imitation of Verit and chipped rubber using light grey paint. When the paint has dried, we can take black wash and darken the rubber parts of the tracks. The tracks are ready. but the hull is not quite there yet. In addition to the signature black color of the Inquisition, we also need to apply the signature red one. I leave the necessary parts of the hull and removable turrets open and cover the rest with masking tape from paint overspray. For the red base I use light grey paint. This will make our red color even brighter. Then we apply blood red paint, and to give it more brutality I use candy red shader paint. Now let's highlight the metal parts. For all the tank parts I use gunmetal paint, and I will emphasize the shine of the elements at the weathering stage with metallic pigments. Done! We can apply varnish and decals. I use a glossy varnish, this way the decals will stick to the surface better. Then I apply microset modeling chemistry to install the decals and then microsol for better welding. I put decals to the sides of the hull and the rear part, to the main gun turret, to the removable missile launcher and even to the plugs of the side gun ports. That's a lot of work, but the main thing when applying decals is to be careful and not to rush, and then everything will turn out the best possible way. When decals dry, we can apply another layer of varnish, this time matte one. The optical elements in the tank are represented by triplexes of the gun turrets, triplexes of the side gun ports, and triplexes of the driver's hatch, not to mention the headlights and searchlight. There is a lot of work, and usually I would imitate the effect of a lens, but today I want to show how you can slightly simplify and perhaps improve the process of painting objects in the tank. I will use holographic film glued to a transparent plastic base. I cut the resulting part into pieces suitable in size for the lens and carefully glue them to the base of the triplex using transparent acrylic glue. The holographic film is translucent, so we can take care and create a substrate on the triplex in the form of graduated transition of paint or a basic lens effect. In any case, such triplexes have a slight mirror effect, which attracts attention well, and this is exactly what we are trying to achieve. Once the periscope's lenses are glued on, we give them extra shine using transparent gloss varnish. It's time for enamel washes. I use black wash modeling chemistry for metal and red parts, and blue wash for panzer gray is suitable for the black hull. I use a brush to highlight the elements of the hull and removable parts, creating volume and shadow on the model. The fluidity of enamel washes is excellent, so if you need to correct errors and problem areas, this can be easily done with a brush dipped in thinner. After the washes have dried, we cover the tank with matte varnish to protect our work. Now we can start creating the wear and tear of our tank. Of course, even the combat vehicles of the Inquisition will have wear and tear and even chips. Still, we won't need a lot of chips because such vehicles are presumably well maintained. Using a sponge and grey color, we create the effect of worn chip paint, which is born from natural wear and tear or minor damage. Then, using a brush, I combine random chip points into a single grid and imitate scratches. Over the light chips I apply dark chipping paint, which resembles the effect of dark rust formed as a result of paint chipping to the metal. On the black camouflage, such chips are not particularly visible, so we emphasize the brightest places with dark rust paint. Well, as usual, the main thing in applying chips is not to overdo it, and stop in time to only emphasize the elements of the model, not to overload its appearance. The final stage of painting the model is applying various technical streaks, rust, and of course dirt. At this stage we can make things up for a small number of chips and generally neat appearance. First, using frills and grime shader paints, I create the effect of dust and dirt on various surfaces, for example anti-cumulative screens. You haven't forgotten about them, have you? After installing the mesh screens in place, we continue to apply dirt and grime to our model. Next, I use dry pigments of light colors, which I mix together with acrylic thinner until it becomes liquid, and apply it to the surface of the tracks and chassis parts with a brush. When the mixture dries, its excess can be easily removed with a regular brush, cotton swab, or sponge soaked in water. To create splashes of dirt, I use a regular brush soaked in our liquid pigments. Even a tank that has seen little use will have at least small streaks of rust, fuel and oil, so we take a brush and create such streaks around the exhaust systems, chassis elements and other technical hatches. At the final stage of weathering, I use dry pigments, which will not only create the effect of dustiness on our tank, but also help to visualize various effects, such as corrosion and soot from the exhaust system. The last layer of varnish and our Chimera is ready to defend the Imperium from heretics, witches and xenos. If you liked the video and want to see more models like this, feel free to comment, like and share it, and also subscribe to the channel. Good luck with your models and see you soon!